A major battle with China underway after Beijing threatened to stop exporting rare earth minerals, which are needed for computer chips for everything from autos to computers and also AI. President Trump also threatened to retaliate by 100% tariffs on China by November 1st in response to a meeting that's scheduled for later this month with President Xi Jinping in South Korea. And joining us now is China analyst as well as author of Plan Red, China's project to destroy America, Gordon Chang. I think we have the book cover there for your book that we can show as well. We appreciate you joining us, Gordon. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Jan.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said that China is trying to bring down the world economy. If we do not step in, is China powerful enough to do that?
Well, China is the second largest economy, world's biggest trader. So yes, they can bring down the global economy if we don't defend it. If we defend it, then we can protect ourselves, our friends and partners, and the rest of the international system, because by the metrics, we are a far more powerful economy. But, the question is, if we believe that we can coexist with China, we're in trouble, because I don't think we can.
Is this just a negotiating tool?
From Bessent's point of view, I think he's finally coming to the realization that China's motives are not what he thought it was or what they were. So I don't think that comment to the Financial Times a few hours ago was a negotiating tool. I think he's starting to understand the maliciousness of the Chinese system.
How does the U.S. have the upper hand here?
Well, first of all, we're the trade deficit country. Last year, China ran a $295.5 billion merchandise trade surplus against us. Trade surplus countries have everything to lose in trade wars. But also, we've got the world's biggest economy. We account for about 34% of global consumer spending, and an export-dependent economy like China, and China's never been more export-dependent in its history, they absolutely cannot replace the U.S. market. Also, we supply some stuff that they can't get elsewhere. So when you add it all up, we've got much more leverage than China has.
And also, China is experiencing quite the economic downturn right now. They're in quite a storm. How bad is it there right now?
It's certainly not growing at the 5.2% pace that they reported for the second quarter. It's more like zero, maybe a little bit above, maybe a little bit below. But the most recent price data we have, which is for August, shows that the country is gripped by deepening deflation. And it's very difficult for an economy to get out of deflation, especially because Xi Jinping's policies are actually accelerating the downward shift.
Gordon, I want to ask you about a big headline that came out yesterday, and that is about this the Dutch government taking over this major Chinese semiconductor company. Tell us what happened here and also what you are keeping an eye on right now as we see the sort of this trade war happening between China and the U.S.
Well, Wingtech, which is a Chinese company, bought Nexperia a few years ago. And on Sunday, the Netherlands imposed or invoked a never used before law, the Goods Availability Act, and took over the management of Nexperia. They didn't take over the shares, but they did this to prevent China from taking the technology of Nexperia and illegally exporting it to China. Beijing is furious, as you can imagine, but nonetheless, this shows that Western countries are starting to understand what China's been doing with the purchases it has made, not only, of course, in the Netherlands, but around the world, and especially in the United States.
They're doing basically like what you said before, what China has done to these countries for years.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, it's basically the Netherlands is returning the favor.
Gordon Chang, always great to see you, sir. Thanks so much for joining us here this morning on the National News Desk. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Jan.
I'm Atra Al-Nashar in Washington. China issuing a new warning to the United States Monday after President Trump announced additional 100% tariffs on Chinese goods. It's all part of a rapid unraveling of trade relations between the U.S. and China. A sudden escalation in the U.S.-China trade war threatens to undo months of progress between the world's two largest economies.
We're not sure where this came from, why the Chinese have decided to do it now.
Things began to unravel late last week when China announced new global export controls on its coveted rare earth minerals and all products containing these minerals. President Trump responding with new 100% tariffs on goods from China and export controls on any and all critical software starting November 1st. This would bring the average tariff on a Chinese product to more than 150%, essentially an embargo. This announcement sent Wall Street into a tailspin Friday, but U.S. stocks rebounded Monday after Trump posted Sunday night, "Don't worry about China, it will all be fine. Highly respected President Xi just had a bad moment. He doesn't want depression for his country, and neither do I. The USA wants to help China, not hurt it." The post was not enough to quell China's anger at the U.S. response.
China urges the U.S. to promptly correct its erroneous practices. If the U.S. insists on going its own way, China will certainly take resolute measures to safeguard its legitimate rights and interests.
Further raising the economic stakes, on Tuesday, both countries are set to raise port fees on each other's commercial ships. All of this is almost certain to deal a blow to America's supply chains and consequently inflate prices on everyday goods. Poor timing, not just because holiday shopping is just around the corner. The inflation rate has already been steadily increasing since May. Even before Trump announced these new tariffs on China, Goldman Sachs economists expected American consumers to bear 55% of tariff costs by the end of this year. The escalation also calls into question a planned meeting between President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping in South Korea at the end of the month. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says he believes the meeting is still on, but in an earlier social media post, Trump said there seems to be no reason to meet. In Washington, I'm Atra El-Najjar for the National News Desk, America's News Now.